What up? Anger, navigating anger. I think that should be the title of this video. And let's jump right in. I'll jump in by telling you what motivated this video is an experience that happened just this morning here with my therapist. I have a therapist that I meet with every 2 to 3 weeks. I really appreciate them. Had some great sessions and had a lot of growth through them on my own and through them. Grateful for therapy. I really want to encourage every single person. If you've come across this video, take your ass to therapy as well. But we're talking about anger, yo. And it's funny because when I was getting on to the therapy session, we do it on a like telehealth thing, so a video call. I was ready to have a bunch of positive things to say. I was pretty sure that it was going to be a good episode about feeling good, man. My life is great. My wife is great. I am free. I am creatively abundant and um, happy, and everything's fantastic. And my relationships are strong. My boundaries are strong, and I've grown so much. And that's what I was prepared to talk to her. I'm also working on an album. We got stuff going on. Things are going great. I'm also working on my cartoon. My voice is strong, and so we started to talk about that, and then we got into a little thing about anger because I had mentioned anger and navigating anger in a previous session. And so she asked a simple question, and she asked me, what did she say? She said, when you learned that it was unsafe to be angry, when you learned that it wasn't good to be angry as a child, who suffered? Who suffered from that? And I sat there and I tried to respond to that. I already knew the answer immediately. I mean, the idea that anytime, and we've talked about this a million times on this show, anytime that you are compelled to be something less than the self, you are pulled away from your intuitive fullness. There are parts of the self that you are told are not acceptable or need to be pushed aside. Anytime that happens, you have suffered. You've suffered. And so as I was responding to her and saying, yeah, I guess I suffered from the personal belief that anger is something I can't engage with. I started to just tear up. I started feeling myself tearing up, and I tried to hold it a bit, and then I just let it go, right? because because thankfully my relationship with my therapist is strong, and we've had sessions like this. And as I sat there, I started crying uncontrollably. I started having to grapple with why I was crying. I didn't understand it. Again, I did I thought the call would be a purely positive one. But I started to think about the times when I was a kid when I learned that anger is dangerous and anger is something for me to avoid. And I remember times when I would watch the older men in my community growing up in Brooklyn, playing basketball or at a party or at any kind of event, at any moment, anger could show itself, and it would show up. And one guy would be very angry and be very, loud and aggressive with his body language. And there's a lot of potential for any other person, whoever he's screaming at, whatever he's screaming about, someone else would get in his face and tell him to stop or shut the fuck up, blah, 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 blah. Who knows what could happen next? Sometimes a weapon could show up in that situation. More than a few times in my childhood, I witnessed guns being pulled out. A couple of times they'd be shot. The guns would be used, and everybody has to deal with that. People are running, people screaming. But even if a weapon's not shown, the anger, the aggression out of nowhere, like I said, a party, someplace you thought everything was good. You thought we were just having fun, and then you have no clue the context. And I learned to avoid anger. I learned that anger was dangerous. I saw guys get angry over weird things. I guess some guys get angry. This one guy I knew was a great athlete. I played football in high school and college. But this guy in high school, man, he was angry about something. I can't even remember what he was angry about, but he punched a bus station. The glass bus stations in Brooklyn, punched it out of a fit of anger. And the glass just went down and shredded his whole arm. It was ripped up. We were seniors. He was very likely to be playing college football, and he had that injury, and I remember thinking, what the fuck? I remember anger was like, okay, anger seemed to me something that we were quick to. It was a part of the masculine definition. It was something that we all agreed upon. And it was always just there. It was always something, you having a conversation with a couple of men. It is known that there's always this potential. If you're having a dispute, you know what I'm saying? If you're having a dispute, that potential could always escalate. And so I learned to stay away from it. I learned that I could use humor to diffuse situations. I learned that I could avoid anger, or that I should. That was as a child. And I really hadn't thought about that for a long time. I hadn't really addressed that and looked at it until again this morning. And what came from that was a deep kind of sadness and a grief, a mourning. That fear about anger then goes into me growing up and into adulthood and going to college, and you go through high school and you go through college and you're being judged and you're being assessed as a black man, you're being assessed as a black boy and black man, you're being assessed for your ability to be a consistent student at the university or to be an employable person when I was at Capitol Hill or in the corporate world. And you just learn that anger has very little value, that it's actually something people are kind of presupposing. I learned ways of performing in a way that would diffuse and would, what's the word? Is it diffuse? Undermine people's presumptions. I would undermine people's stereotypes, let people know that I'm safe, that I'm not an angry person. I'm not quick to anger. I think that's something that a lot of us deal with. There's a debate people have about like respectability politics. Sometimes it has to do with like clothing and manner of speaking and all that stuff. But I think it also has to do with this disposition as well, particularly as a black man. There's a question about your disposition. I know several people who naturally, they know how to, you navigate these spaces by being safe, by appearing calm. And I developed a persona of calm. I'm a calm person. I truly am. I'm someone who, if there's a lot going on, a lot of craziness going on, I can breathe, slow time down personally, and not react. I'm not going to jump and scream and, and do something out of character. I'm not quick to anger. But sometimes anger is necessary. Sometimes anger is what is. Sometimes anger is a response to stimuli in the real world. Sometimes anger is a legitimate human response and a legitimate legitimate tool for boundary setting and for safety and for discernment. In the professional world, working at CNN, you learn too that anger just is not professionally acceptable. I watch CNN. If anyone watches CNN, I tell you, you should not. But that those conversations, there's an assumption you're supposed to sit across from a loser. You're supposed to sit across from a racist, a low integrity manipulator like Ben Shapiro or Scott Jennings. There are a number of other names I could talk about, people who are famous on these networks, on cable news. You're supposed to sit across from them and have a conversation about redlining, about war, about healthcare. And you're supposed to presume the best out of each other. Everyone is supposed to assume that this is a conversation of qualified, decent people who are using language with an effort to understand each other, right? You're not allowed to notice the context. You're not allowed to get ad hominem and recognize that this person is a low integrity, self-interested huckster. There seems to be, at least in those spaces, no benefit to engaging with their. So you just have to again assume everything's above board and engage with their words and engage with their contrived silly arguments without anger. Anger won't likely get you called back. You know, performing a conversation will likely get you called back. But fuck that, yo. This is deep for me, I think, and this goes to a lot of the stuff we've been talking about that rolling discourse on what it means to be genuine. We talked about how it is a evolution, and it has to do with presence, and it has to do with being ever more comfortable in the shadow, dealing with those spaces that you typically ignore. Like a lot of us can, we build up an ego. YouTube, actually, I think I'm not fully sure. YouTube incentivizes you to smile. I don't know. The YouTube covers, people talk about things happy. Everyone wants, it's entertainment is a thing, You get on, smash that like button, happy energy. And some of the more popular people I can think of, I Show Speed and stuff, they're just energetic in a positive way. And I find myself engaging with the darker sides of things. I find myself needing to give language to the shadow, and to peer into those places that we usually just ignore. We can build a whole ego in a certain way, and avoid anger. But I don't think that that's possible in the full way. And I also noticed that there are people who engage in anger. They will engage in their anger. Um, and maybe it's not fair. Maybe they're not penalized in the same way for their anger. When these guys on CNN decide to get angry, their little whiny manifestations of their anger. Mayor Mandani is bad, and whatever they're saying, like there's no engagement with anger is valuable. It is important. It is who you are. It is what you are. It comes from you. There are such things as negative manifestations of anger. There are such things as unhealed, unsafe manifestations of anger. Anger is a tool, and it can be dangerous. And just as you should be careful with electricity or with fire, and you can acknowledge the danger inherent in those things, you also know that it's a tool, and you use electricity and you use fire to your benefit. So I speak to everyone, particularly men, particularly black men, of goodwill and of integrity, and who want to see a better world. If you are holding on to some performance that keeps you safe, it keeps you, performing safety, performing lack of anger, performing, you're if you discard anger, if you discard any part of the self, including anger, you undermine yourself. You saddle yourself with it. You don't allow yourself to engage. You build resentment, and you're probably also not contributing to the world, to making the world better, because your anger is likely potentially righteous, and your expression of it creates. It creates in a different way than your other expressions. Today was a powerful therapy session for me, and I'm just blessed. I feel really lucky again, like, because I'm understanding more and more myself, and I'm understanding that I'm truly capable of holding the whole thing. I'm truly capable of being my full self. I am not someone who is quick or irrational to anger, and I'm not someone who flies off the handle and uses anger in destructive ways. if my anger were to show up, it would be warranted and sensible. And how it would show up would be warranted and sensible. And I think perhaps one of the final parts of my final, I say final, none of this is final. None of this is concrete. The healing process is exactly that, is a process, and it just rolls on and it cycles. But I'm in a phase, I believe, where, man, I've come to a peace with so many things, and I have grown in so many ways. And this anger, this association as anger bad, this tendency to avoid anger reflexively, to not engage with my anger, it's a kind of not loving the self. And I intend to rid myself of that. I intend to love myself fully. And I'll need to in this world with political manipulation at every turn and disingenuous discourse and violence and abuse. So as always, this is a call to anyone. If you've been drawn to this video, if you clicked on this video, there's a reason for that. If you're still watching, there's a reason for that, and I appreciate you. But often and always, these videos are messages to myself as well, callbacks to myself, and a reminder that I'm capable of it all. And I'm proud of sort of the whole thing. Even when I classified anger as bad and divorced myself from it, the ways that I navigated that, the ways I created safety, the ways I set boundaries were different. They are different now. They will be different going forward, but I am capable of the whole thing. I'm capable of holding difficult, complex, and even dangerous emotions and alchemizing them with the knowledge that I have and the awareness that I have. And then it's all good. And then I'm full. And people will have to deal with that. That's what it is. I might have to come into this more. I find that a lot of times on a first episode about authenticity will go great, and then but I really get into it deeper in the next episodes. So this is my first really traversing this, and I think that's the message. I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you check out the rest of the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We talk we talk about a lot of good stuff here, and we get creative. And I've got new music coming out very soon, a new album, which I'm very proud of. Many of the songs are already out, but we're gonna have 2 new songs and drop an album, and it talks about all of these themes that we've been covering, about authenticity and about God and about awareness, about love, and a bit about anger. Yeah. All right. Thanks, y'all. That's how Billy sees it. Peace.